Howdy, my name is Michael Hudson, and I'm here for the final presentation for Communications 340. And my project title is Video Games for All Mankind. I will be discussing Lecture 4 from Week 4, Chapter 10 on video games. In my opinion, I felt like some of the main points of this chapter, first of all, was just kind of the history and evolution of gaming and game consoles. When you look at it, we go all the way back to, Nintendo with the NES and the Super NES. We got the Sega Genesis. We got the N64, and then we started getting PlayStations, Xboxes, Wiis. And it really progressed from, as Professor Lopez said, a single joystick leading Pac-Man to now putting on virtual reality goggles and putting yourself in a completely new setting. I felt like another big part of the chapter was the rise of gaming culture. Now in 2020, you can go to college for free just because you are good at video games. They have scholarships for video games. You can have a career that pays you a salary because you are good at video games. We see that with esports, indie league gaming. We see it all over the place nowadays for all different types of games, Nintendo, shooter games, really anything out there. I also thought it was interesting in this chapter how it discussed just how video games and movies and music, all different types of media that we talk about in this class, they're all blended into one when you get a good video game. You have a movie that might become a video game, or a video game that might become a movie. You have famous artists that make soundtracks, not only for movies, but now for video games. You have cutscenes with characters that are voiced by famous actors. So it's all kind of becoming entangled. And video games does a really good job, in my opinion, of blending those together. Also, I think where this is done really well is with comic books such as Marvel. Marvel's got comic books, they've got movies, they've got video games, they've got soundtracks, they've got it all. And I think they do it really well. It's a really good example. And lastly, I think one of the main parts of this chapter was addressing video games' effect on both violence and addiction. I thought Professor put it great, how he said, if you're constantly watching violent movies and constantly playing video games that are violent, you're exposed and, learning constantly violence and how to do it or what goes into it. And so in that sense, it can definitely mess with your head, I think, if you're not in the right headspace. And if you have an unhealthy amount of violent video games and movies, then it can definitely play a role into that. However, for the normal person, I think video games can be a beautiful thing. Also with the addiction part, in moderation, I feel like that's kind of with everything. As long as you keep it in moderation, a healthy amount, video games are not inherently dangerous. The main points that I thought resonated with me were first on, like I said earlier, the evolution, mainly with the physicality of video games. We got a Wii that let us become physical and active, and then we got the Kinect on Xbox, and now we're moving into a virtual reality and augmented reality where we can be physical and getting exercise and put ourselves in a different universe or situation, but we're still playing a video game. And I think that's super cool where technology has taken us. Secondly, I think video games are important because you really do build a community in online gaming, whether it's you're playing split screen with your brothers or you're playing online with your friends. In a healthy amount, I think it builds relationships. I think it creates memories, at least for me and my friends and brothers. We have a lot of good stories about playing video games, watching each other's screen cheating, whatever it is. I think video games have their benefits for everyone. Anyone who plays can find something or a console or a game that is appealing to them, and I think that's really cool about video games. And there's also studies out there that show it improves hand-eye coordination and decision-making, so there are benefits of that. And the third point that resonated with me was just the storyline. I think it's really cool that, as we're moving into this virtual reality and high technology and, these computer-like consoles that are coming out this year, you can look at someone like Nintendo, who, besides the Wii, they really haven't been all that, I guess, transformational. You know, they stick to the storyline. They choose storyline over really anything else, and they're the most successful video game company or console in the history of the world. So they're doing something right. Lastly, my prediction for the next 50 years, I think definitely what you touched on a little bit, Professor, we're going to see more gender, LGBTQ, and race inclusive video games. We're also going to have a lot more faster and more powerful consoles in the future, which is going to take gaming to a next level. I think it's going to be exciting to see, and that's my presentation too for my final project. Thank you, Professor Lopez, and have a great summer.